Good morning and welcome. We'll wait just about maybe one more minute just to see if anybody joins us, and then we'll do introductions. Today's parent guardian partner panel is about IEP documents. And it looks like we have quite a lot of staff here and just a few parents, but that's good. Then we can have an intimate conversation and you'll have plenty of time to ask questions as we go through each document. If you do have your child's IEP handy, then that might help because you can look at it as we go through these. But if not, don't panic. You'll still probably get a lot out of this. Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with introductions. I'm just gonna go based on who's on my screen. And so first we have Deb Wickman. Deb, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. My name is Deb Wickman. I'm the Parent and Family Engagement at TOSA.
Thank you. And Anna Maria Burke.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Maria Burke, and I'm a special education teacher on special assignment, or TOSA for short. And I support a number of teachers in our district, especially in the mild moderate setting. And today I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have any specific questions, please feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat, and I will make sure that gets read out loud to everybody.
Thank you. And Heather Sapola.
Hi, good morning. I'm Heather Sapola. I'm also a special ed teacher on a special assignment at TOSA, and I'm happy to be presenting to you this morning. So I look forward to our discussion.
And our fabulous interpreter, Diane.
Good morning, buenos días. Estoy aquí para interpretar. Me avisan si alguien necesita interpretación al español. Gracias.
And we have Dr. Leah Dardis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leah, and I am the Director of Special Education. And come to find out, I'm in my dream job. So I'm super excited to be here and working with our parent guardian panel and understanding how we can really increase communication and really have that trust with our parent partners, because you are critical to the IEP process and our IEP team. You are your children's first teachers. And so really understanding how we can capitalize on all of the information that you have to really make an educational experience supportive of your child. I have been doing parent interviews, so I'm going to drop my email in the chat. And if you're interested in talking with me and sharing some of your experiences with Oceanside, I'm readily available to meet with you after spring break. Obviously, we have 2 days right now, so I'm not going to say that anyone's really going to be able to do that. But after spring break, if you want to talk with me and share your experiences working and collaborating with our district, I'm very happy to do so. And I'll be dropping my email in the chat for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. And Stephanie Grossman.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Grossman. I am one of the special education coordinators. I primarily support the schools from elementary through high school on the El Camino side of the district, but I do work with a fabulous team. So, so in one way or another, I work with all the schools and support all the families. So I'm really happy that you guys are here, because the more information that you understand, the better the team can really work together and, really specifically work so your child can make as much progress as possible. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Steph. And Dr. Stacy Began.
Good morning. I'm a school board member. I'm just here seeing what all the good information that you can learn, and just here to support parents. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Lynn Dudas. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm one of the special education coordinators, and I primarily support behavior in the district and mod severe programs currently. And for the parents, I don't want to put you on the spot. So, so if you would like to introduce yourselves, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself. And then if you prefer, you can introduce yourself in the chat, or I don't know if Anna Maria and Heather, if you had specific questions you wanted them to answer in the chat. But, oh, I see somebody. Mr. Emanuele, would you like to introduce?
Yes. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Jamie Emanuele. I am Sophie Emanuele's dad, and I'm very excited to be here. Look forward to this morning. Wonderful meeting with Ms. Burke. Hi. And just looking forward to being part of all this, the information, as well as anything else that I can contribute. So I appreciate everybody more than you know.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. We appreciate you. And Diane, I see that we have somebody who would like your interpretation.
Yes, if we can please set it up and I can give the instructions to the parent now. You can show the slide that has that. Ok, para el señor o señora que se llama Moto, les voy a dar las instrucciones. Aquí en su pantalla puede ver, en un segundo va a aparecer este icono de globo o mundo que dice interpretación. En este momento no está, pero lo van a activar. Usted va a hacer clic en el globo que dice interpretación. Después va a escoger español o Spanish. A partir de ese momento usted va a estar en otro canal de audio conmigo, pero puede también escuchar la conversación con un volumen más bajo. Si tiene problemas, favor de avisar en el chat.
Did you guys activate the interpretation feature?
Not yet.
Okay.
So Miss Deb Wickman.
Is it all right if I go to the English slide to show people how to access Zoom functions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for the interpreter channel for me to appear and also for the parent. There we go. So So it did not come up for me as the interpreter. Let's see.
Welcome. Thank you, those of you who have just joined us. We are working on getting the interpretation set up. So if you,
It's working.
yay. Okay, and oh, sorry. I believe that Gabriel was unmuting himself. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi. Good morning,
Hi.
everyone. My name is Gabriel Asensio. I'm Dominic Anthony Asensio's uncle. Just want to say good morning to everybody. Oceanside School District. I really, really, really appreciate you guys. You guys have really helped me as far as helping Dominic out. And I'm just here this morning to learn everything that I can continue on learning as a parent. Also too, I had a quick question. How do I get the IEP documents? Because I don't have them. Do they send them out or do I go to the school to request them, or how does that work?
Yeah, you can request them at any time. And do you have educational rights then for Dominic?
And yeah, I'm still in the process of getting the documents, but I do have the affidavit from the school. So I guess I would say yes, right?
Okay. Did you attend the IEP meeting?
This is actually the first meeting that I've ever attended.
Okay. I'm trying to think of how I could get it to you, or if I can. Oh, as a director, if you were interested. Oh, okay, that was Dr. saying something. Maybe I can try to contact the case manager. Let's see. Are you able to chat, Gabriel, with just me in the chat with Lynn?
Hold on. Yeah. I'm getting a
Okay,
phone
maybe
calls.
we can chat and try to figure it out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anna Maria or Heather, do you want to, while I'm helping out Gabriel, do you want to go ahead and
Sure, definitely. Are there any other parents? Thank you, Lynn. Are there any other parents who would like to introduce yourself? You do not have to at all. We're just wondering if you would like to. Okay. So we will go ahead and get started. So like I said, I'm Heather Zapulla. I'm a special ed teacher. Sometimes you might also hear that be called an education specialist. And that is what I am, and that's what Anna Maria is. And you wonder, why am I giving this presentation? I'll tell you, because in the past 14 years here at Oceanside, I've probably attended, created, written, facilitated about 200 IEPs and IEP meetings. So I do know a bit about this, and so do my colleagues, and we're all happy to be here to explain the process a little bit more. And really, if you do have your child's IEP here with you in your hand, that would be great, because we are going to really take it apart. You can highlight it, you can write all over it, and then just to get yourself familiar with it. And then after this, if you need to, you can ask your child's teacher, hey, can I please have another copy of my child's IEP because I wrote all over this one. So that's completely okay for you to do today, just to help us all get a little more familiar with it. So here's the agenda. And just to let you know, I cannot see anybody else's face. So if you have a question or comment, jump in.
And I did want to also just remind everybody. So again, I'm Anna Maria Burke, and I'll be monitoring the chat. Again, if you do have a question that you would like to ask, feel free, and I will make sure that question gets read out loud to the group. And also just a little reminder, if you don't happen to have your child's IEP available, we will be going through each particular document with an example of a PDF, so you will be able to see what it looks like.
Thank you. So today's agenda, we have a couple hours, and honestly, we could spend a couple hours on just about each page of the IEP, but we're not going to do that. So I'm going to try to make it tolerable and enjoyable. So we're going to, you can see the agenda here. We already talked about how to work Zoom, both in Spanish and in English. We had some introductions, Zoom procedures. Like I said, I can't see many of you, so if you have a question, put it in the chat and Maria will let me know, or you can just unmute and ask that way. It would be great to see your faces, but you do not have to turn your video on during this presentation. We're going to talk about the IEP documents. We're going to talk about the 13 conditions for eligibility for special education. We are going to have a couple of breaks and times to discuss issues or to go up, get a drink of water, use the restroom. And please feel free at any point during this time, if you need to stand up, walk around, stretch, whatever you need to do. We want this to be a comfortable and enjoyable experience for you. We'll continue talking about IEP documents and then close it out with any questions. So I will go ahead and move on. Okay. It looks like, here we go. If you would, let's see, if you want to consider these questions, what would you like to get out of this time with us? Would you like to learn more about a specific page of the IEP? Do you just want a general knowledge, a little bit more about the IEP process? if there's a certain part that you would like us to focus on, we can spend a little more time on that page if you already have something in mind. You can consider letting us know what age your child is, and that way we can tailor our presentation toward that grade level. We could also tailor the presentation toward if your child spends a full day in a special ed classroom in a separate setting, then that's one way we can tailor our IEP presentation today. Or if your child spends a lot of time in the general education environment and receives just a little bit of special ed services here and there, that's another way that we can tailor this presentation. So would anyone like to share, and no pressure if you don't want to, just if anyone would like to give us a little idea of what you would like to get out of this, this is a time to let us know. Okay, we will go on. And so regarding today's presentation, if you end up sharing about your child's situation, go ahead. We just encourage you to share in general terms. If you want to get into specifics about like, why was this written on my child's IEP, something like that, that's something for another time. And, you know, we're happy to help you afterwards and answer any questions you have about your child's IEP. We're not part of your child's IEP team, so we can't probably answer specific questions, but we can answer some general ones afterwards. If you'd like us to take a little more time with you, we're happy to do that. We also provided our email addresses at the end of this presentation, and as well, Dr. Dardis, our special education director, also, I believe she put her email address in the chat. So ideas or questions, go in the chat. So any questions, and I'll move on. Okay. So the first, let's dive in. So when your child's IEP is coming up, say maybe, you know, a month before the IEP, your teacher the child's teacher may start saying, hey, when are you available to meet? They might be emailing you or calling you and just saying, hey, you know, we want to plan this IEP meeting. When are you available? And so hopefully that's happening anywhere from like a month to a couple weeks before the IEP. The meeting notice, I'm just going to go through this slide and then I'll show you an example of the meeting notice. The purpose clearly of the meeting notice is to officially invite you and other members to the IEP meeting. And we are supposed to do this with enough notice for you to actually arrange the IEP meeting into your busy schedule. The required team members at an IEP meeting are the parent, the administrator, the special ed teacher, who is sometimes called the case manager, sometimes called the ed specialist. I'm going to be sharing a lot of language that goes on in the special ed world during this presentation, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. It's almost like a different language in itself. And finally, the general ed teacher is a required member of the IEP team. And students can actually attend and facilitate their own IEP, which is really exciting when they are empowered to do that. That generally, I've seen it happen in high school, where a high school student will facilitate his or her own IEP meeting. And you may bring somebody to the IEP meeting for support. So let's say that, you know, when you go to the doctor and you want someone to come in with you when the doctor shares all this information with you and you're kind of nervous about it, you want someone else to hear it with you so that maybe you hear one thing from the doctor and your friend hears another thing. So that's kind of the same thing at an IEP meeting. If you are afraid or just a little nervous that you're not going to quite pick up everything, you can definitely invite someone to that meeting who you're comfortable with, who can help you, and who can just be another pair of ears as an advocate for your child. Any questions?
No, Heather, but I did just want to make a comment. Of course, there are also other IEP team members for your child, depending on the type of services that your child receives. And we will be getting more into that a little bit later on.
Okay, so I'll show you the English version of the meeting notice. So let's see. So here we are. This is a fictional student, Harry Potter, and this is Harry Potter's IEP meeting notice. So it's very. Oh, hello. I can hear someone. Okay, so this just explains that this is the IEP date, or here's today's date. Here's the information about you're being invited to this meeting. Here is the time and the date. And during this past year of COVID pandemic, we've been meeting on Zoom for IEP meetings. Here are the members that we anticipate will attend: the administrator, special ed teacher, general ed teacher. It could also be the school psychologist if it's an initial IEP meeting or a triennial. And there may be other specialists at the IEP meeting, like an occupational therapist or a speech and language pathologist. And there's a notice about if you wish to audio tape the meeting, there's information about that. And here's who to contact if you would like further information about your procedural safeguards. And the procedural safeguards are basically your rights as a parent or a guardian of a student with an IEP. And so this is the main part of the meeting notice. There are a variety of ways that you can attend the meeting. You can attend, well, when it's not COVID, you can attend in person. You can attend by telephone. If you need the assistance of an interpreter, you check that box. You request a different time or a different day, you can put your information there and the teacher will call you and let you know. Or no, you cannot attend and you want to give someone else you want to hand over the responsibility just for that day or during that IEP meeting. You can have someone else sit in, and then the teacher will mail you the IEP document when it's all done, and you can read over it and approve it and consent to it if that is your wish. And then you sign the meeting notice down here. So I can also go to another meeting notice in Spanish. So that way I want to show you just real quick what the Spanish copy looks like. So again, it has the student's date of birth here, the date the meeting notice is sent out, an explanation of what this invitation is about, and again, the date, who will be attending, and all your options for how you may want to attend this meeting. And it's really important that if you want an interpreter, that you check that box, and that way this information can be easily accessible to you. So are there any questions about the meeting notice? Okay, so I will move on. There's also something that you should be aware of before the whole IEP meeting begins is the excusal form. The excusal form is, not everybody gets one at an IEP meeting. The purpose is to notify you if an IEP team member will not be attending the meeting, whether in part, where part of the meeting they're not attending, or in the whole meeting they're not attending. So you have a right to know before the meeting if a team member will not be there. There's different ways that you can handle an IEP team member not being there. You can handle it by, if you do not excuse the IEP team member who will be absent, then the case manager or teacher or speech therapist, whoever is in charge of your child's IEP, they will need to reschedule the meeting. Okay, so if you do not approve of this person not being there, then the meeting will need to be rescheduled. Also, if you do excuse the IEP team member, that member should contact you prior to the IEP to discuss an update on his or her goals or services or whatever. So say, for example, the occupational therapist perhaps cannot make the IEP meeting. And let's say the teacher notifies you about 3 days before that, hey, you know what, the occupational therapist can't attend the meeting. Are you okay with that? And you can say, sure, I'm okay. And you can sign the excusal form. But you can say, hey, can the occupational therapist call me and give me an update? And yes, the occupational therapist should be able to do that. This is what a meeting notice looks like. And it really just describes that, I'm sorry, this is the excusal. It really describes, that you need to be aware if there's an IEP team member who is going to be absent. And here at Harry Potter's IEP, his speech therapist had to be out for part of the meeting, not the whole meeting. And part of the approval process is, you know what, the speech therapist is not changing Harry's services. So we're going to check that box that the speech therapist is not making any changes to Harry's IEP. And although she will only be there for part of the meeting, the parent will approve of this excusal. So I can also show you what the excusal looks like in English. And this is a, I'll just show you. So it's saying, that you agree that you understand this member of the team will not be present. And are there any questions about this? That's really just something that should happen before the IEP meeting. Okay, so next let's go to, the information eligibility page. Okay, so this page I'm going to read through this slide, and then I'll show you an example of one. The information eligibility is the first page of the IEP. So you sit down, you do introductions, you're offered your rights as a parent, and you're offered just a lot of information about Medi-Cal and things like that Medi-Cal uses. Medi-Cal bills. Oh, go ahead.
Heather, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but it seems like we have a few more parents who have joined us. So I wanted to extend the offer if anybody else needed Spanish translation services. If you could just unmute or let us know, and we'll be happy to get that started for you.
Should I go back to the slide that shows how to access the features of interpretation?
Yes, please, if you could do that.
Great.
Si alguien desea interpretación, la señora Cipolla va a llegar a enseñarle cómo accesar la información. Va a ver que el logo, como el mundo, va a hacer clic ahí y luego va a escuchar a señora Diane Kemp López, que es la señora para hacer la interpretación.
I'll just keep this slide on for just a moment. There are a lot of things going on the Zoom screen, and a lot of ways to participate in this meeting. So you can see there's a chat option. If any of you who are just coming into this meeting would like to ask any questions, you can just unmute and ask the question, or you can write it in the chat as well. And thank you for being here.
All right, Heather, it looks like we can go ahead and continue. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to go to the information eligibility page slide. And so like I said, this is the first page of the IEP, and it really is just that. It's the information page, and it talks about eligibility. So thankfully, these IEP documents are titled appropriately, and there's no mystery. So in the information eligibility page, you're going to see a bunch of dates when the IEP is being held, the original date your child entered special education, the next annual IEP date, the last evaluation date, the next evaluation date, lots of dates. That's the beginning. The next part of the information eligibility page talks about the meeting type. If this is an initial meeting, that means your first IEP meeting ever, an annual meeting that's reviewed every year, or a triennial meeting that's reviewed every 3 years. And usually at the triennial meetings, there are a little more participants than normal because the school psychologist will have done testing and things like that. An amendment is a time when a change is made maybe to the IEP in the middle of the year that's not an annual IEP. And just so you know, you can ask for an IEP meeting at any time. You don't have to wait for the annual meeting. If you have a concern about your child's progress on his or her goals or anything, you can call an IEP meeting anytime. That's your right. So the next part of the information eligibility page just talks about your child's information, even some of your information, your address, your email address. Also, there's the disability statement purpose on the information eligibility page, and that describes how your child is eligible for special education under one of the 13 federally approved categories. And it shows quite a few more dates about when your child becomes eligible. So here's let's see, I'll show you the information eligibility page here. Let's see. So if we want to break it down, this green, I did some highlighting on this page so you could see, okay, here are the dates I talked about. That green highlighter on the right represents, okay, this information is talking about the dates and what type of meeting this is. For Harry, it's an annual, and he's almost 16 years old, so it's considered a transition IEP where he thinks about his future and how he would like to transition after high school. So there's some dates up here. There's also some dates down here. This is when when the child entered special education. How did that entry happen? Was it a parent requested or a student study team? So those are some dates. And again, here, just the child's information in yellow. The child's race here is the yellow highlight. Your information and the address and phone numbers, that's in blue. And then there's this little paragraph about your child's disability. And here's the thing, this little paragraph is a big reason why we're here. It is the reason why we are here. This paragraph describes how there's some deficit in how your child learns and how your child may express what he or her knows. And we are here to make a plan to help correct that. So honestly, I'm going to just be real honest with you. Sometimes during this part of the IEP, some parents may be crying because they realize, oh my gosh, my child has autism. I can't believe this. I don't know what that is. And it's a perfectly normal response to realizing your child has a certain need. Also, this section might be a total relief for some parents. Like, wow, now I know why Johnny hates being at school for the past 2 years, because he's having a hard time, and this is why he's having a hard time. So this paragraph can really, a lot of emotions are around it. So every one of them are valid. So I just want to state that it's a little paragraph, but it has a big effect. And so Harry's primary disability is specific learning disability, and his secondary is other health impairment. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the different disabling conditions. So I'm going to go to this slide. So there are 13 federally handicapping conditions under the California Education Code. And if you come from another state, there is another disability category that we do not recognize in California. It's developmentally disabled. But in California, we have 13 of them. The categories are not specific, so you won't see dyslexia on this list of 13 conditions. You will not see ADHD explicitly but dyslexia falls under the umbrella of specific learning disability, and ADHD falls under the umbrella of other health impairment. Okay, so it's good to know that you may not see your child's exact condition in these 13 federally handicapping codes. And also, these 13 federally handicapping conditions are different from a medical diagnosis. So, you know, if your child is diagnosed ADHD by a doctor, that's good, and you can bring that diagnosis to the IEP meeting, and then we can find that ADHD is served under the handicapping condition of other health impairment. But what we do at an IEP meeting is not a medical diagnosis. Just want to make that clear. So this is California Department of Education website, and it talks about different disability codes. So intellectual disability is one of the 13 handicapping conditions. Hard of hearing, deaf, hard of hearing impairment, sorry. Speech and language impairment, visual impairment, emotional disturbance, orthopedic impairment. And orthopedic impairment is, say somebody maybe with cerebral palsy may fall under the category of orthopedic impairment in the IEP world. Other health impairment, and again, it has all these conditions where these conditions can help the student have an IEP under the other health impairment umbrella. And it's important to know that if the disability affects a student's education, then that's something that we work with. But if a student has asthma, which is a medical condition, but it doesn't affect his or her education, that's not what the IEP is about. The IEP is about a disabling condition that affects a student's ability to learn and to output information about what he or she learns.
Heather?
Yes.
Can I just piggyback on that?
Yes.
So when we're talking about medical diagnosis and educational eligibility, they really are in two different forms. So a lot of times there's confusion if you have a medical diagnosis of autism or a medical diagnosis of ADHD. That does not automatically mean they are eligible for special education services. Quite often they are. However, again, as Heather was saying, so say for ADHD, they might be have a little trouble focusing. They might have certain accommodations that can easily be made, possibly through a different channel through general education, which would be a 504. But I just want to make sure that it was clear that it's not a guarantee that if there's a medical diagnosis, they automatically are eligible for special education, but that's what the whole process is for. So if you are wondering, well, I have this, diagnosis, can you take a look at it? Then that's what the assessment process will do. Take a look, say, yes, actually, we do see that your child is exhibiting the signs of autism that is negatively impacting their ability to learn and ability to be in social situations. So like I said, that comes up quite often, and it could be a source of frustration. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clearly explained. And if you do need that explained again at any of your meetings, please make sure you ask the case manager, the psychologist, whoever you're meeting with, because we want to make sure that you're fully understanding all of the information that you are being given.
Thank you. And this is the same, this page is the same information as the other page I was showing you. It's in Spanish, and the website is parentcenterhub.org. And this just explains the 13 disabling conditions that are recognized in California. So if there are no questions, I will go on. So after you talk about, usually when we have an IEP meeting, we talk about the information eligibility page. We make sure all that information is correct. And then we talk about progress on previous goals. And this is not shared at an initial IEP because your child is just entering special education, but progress on previous goals are shared during an annual IEP and during a triennial IEP. And the purpose is to describe your child's progress toward a targeted skill area. And in the progress report, there should be, percentages, accuracies, like he does this with 45% accuracy, and there should be some qualitative comments as well, like he or she is showing some challenge in this area. It needs to be shared with you regularly. So progress on previous goals or progress on goals should be shared, on a semester basis if your child is in a semester system. If a student has a more significant need, then say, for example, maybe just more intense needs, or maybe the student is an English language learner and receives English language development services, then those progress on goals should be shared more frequently. So, and that's decided on by the IEP team. So I will show you an example of progress on previous goals. Let's see, it's over here. And this one is in English. So, so the dates are a little bit off, but in this math goal, you can see the area of need here is math. You can see that this is the progress. He's making progress. He's trying his best in math and doing better in his class. His grade is improving. So then, and that was short and sweet. Another one, his next goal is about comprehension, reading comprehension. And here there's a bit more detail. He's, after reading a 9th grade level text, he's able to demonstrate comprehension skills in all these ways: making predictions, 100% accuracy; distinguishing between fact and opinion, 80% accuracy. So we should be, teachers should be reporting information like this in percentages, and also describing a little more qualitative as well, his progress. And again, here's another example in editing, revising. So this is what the progress report looks like. It is not your child's report card. It's separate from a general education report card. Okay, so this is the goal on, this is the progress on goals, separate from your general education teacher's report card. And it looks like that's it. So Harry only had a few goals. And let me find the presentation. I think I lost my presentation. Let me go over here. Okay. Oh, here, excuse me. So we talked about progress on previous goals, and next we'll talk about the transition plan. And the transition plan is for students who are turning 16 years old within the school year. And it describes specific goals that a child is working toward college and career development, life skills, and how those goals will be met. It highlights classes and credits that they have earned and credits that they still need to earn. And some students will finish with a high school diploma, and some students will finish with a certificate of completion at the end of high school, just depending on what route they take as far as their needs. And then a student with significant needs may have a transition plan up until age 21. And I can show you a transition plan here. And I don't know if any of your students are in high school right now, but if they are, you will be going over the transition page. And this is what it looks like. Basically, we assess your student, meaning we ask some questions about his or her desires for the future, goals for college or career. And then we, taking that information from the interview with your child, we plug it in to all these different goals. This is an education, a college goal. This is an employment goal. And then for our students with more intense needs, we also develop independent living goals. So that is what the transition page 1 looks like. And there's another transition page that talks about just the credits and class credits and, just how many units he still needs to complete, those kinds of things. So I don't know if any of your students are of that age, but I will just go ahead and continue with the presentation. So after the transition page, I had an opportunity if we want to take a break, but does anyone want to keep going, or does anyone want to take a couple minute stretch?
Or does anybody have any questions so far?
There was a question in the chat about whether or not this presentation will either be sent out as a link or where it can be found. So I believe that we'll be sending the link through the chat, and I believe Deb's, it will be stored on our website. Perhaps we can get that information and we'll let everyone know.
Okay.
And I do have a message here from our interpreter that we can 15 minutes, but we go on and get that work with everybody else.
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. I couldn't hear everything you said.
Sure, no problem. Diane is good to go for about another 15 more minutes before a break.
Okay, great. So let's get going. Okay, so this is the exciting part of the IEP, and I'm showing you this visual because there is a method. There's a flow to the IEP documents, and this is where the flow really starts. And so the next section we're going to be talking about the present levels of the student's IEP, and that means that is where the student is functioning right now, how he or she is performing right now. And
Heather, can I stop you for a second?
Oh, yes.
We have a message from the parent. She
Okay.
says that when can she receive the progress report of her child? And it's in Spanish. That's why I interpreted it or interpreted it for you.
Okay, thank you. She should receive the progress report. Well, it should be on the IEP when the progress report will be shared. And if it's not written on the IEP when the progress will be shared, it should be shared generally at the semester, the same time that general education peers are receiving their report cards. Has that been the case? Okay, hopefully. Oh.
Give it a second. Wait.
Okay.
She says, yes, I understand.
Okay, very good. Very good.
And also, you can ask the case manager for information on how your child is doing on their goals at any point. It won't be a formal progress report, but if you know the progress reports are coming out in December and you have a question, say in October or November, please make sure that you reach out to your case manager to say, hey, how's my son doing on the math goal? Again, the better communication you have with your child's case manager, the better everything will work for your child.
She says she also has the general grades for her child too.
Very good. So we did progress on goals, and now we're into where your child is performing, how they're performing, and that's called present levels. And then what we do is we take those present levels and we push them into goals. We say, okay, there are some deficits in how he or she is working. We're going to make that a goal area, and then we're going to make a service to help meet that goal. So there's a flow to the IEP document, there's a flow to the way we decide things, and that's just one way to picture it. So the present levels page is, you could also call it current functioning. You know, I think that might be a way that another state describes it. But the purpose is to show a clear description of how your child is performing right now. The present levels talk about the student's strengths and preferences and interests. The present levels will discuss parent concerns. The present levels page will talk about scores from different tests, the state tests that are taken every spring, that every student takes every spring. The present levels will talk about your child's hearing and vision scores. And it'll list all these academic skills, reading, math, writing, communication, gross motor, fine motor, emotional health, behavioral, vocational skills, adaptive daily living skills, and health in general. And then the present levels will talk about areas of need. So I will go ahead and I can show a present levels in Spanish here. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. So let me make this larger. So again, this is the student's interests and preferences. This part is very important. It is such a little, it looks little, but it's huge. It's what are your concerns as a parent? What would you like to see your child doing by this time next year? What are some patterns of deficits that you see your child experiencing over and over? This is where you put your concerns. And it is a very important part of the meeting. And it really shows that we are interested in what you, the parent, has to say about your child's education. This talks about the standardized tests. If he or she is below standard or at standard for English language arts. Again, the standardized tests in math, those are the scores. For our students with more intense needs, there's an alternate assessment that's called the California Alternate Assessment, and that is for students who have more intense needs. There's also, if your child is an English language learner, he or she will take a test called the LPAC and then receive scores in different areas, speaking, listening, reading, writing. Harry Potter doesn't have scores in this area, but your child might.
And Heather, before
Yes.
we move on, Dr. Dardis did put in the chat that there currently is a suspension in state testing, obviously for 2020. So that part that you just showed may not be updated for all of the students' IEPs.
And then this year for testing,
Mm-hmm.
the California Department of Education and the State Board of Education has been seeking waivers. So there might not be any science testing yet. And we are looking at other ways that we can test our students. When we use the SBAC for math and ELA, they really adapted and kind of modified that. So we could actually be using some of our own internal assessments. And we're still waiting on final word for that. So this area may be looking a little different for last year, for this year, and even as we continue to update that. So I don't want to have parents think that, oh my goodness, we don't have any information, and not understand that it was suspension and testing. Very true.
Thank you. Just another result of the pandemic. So this part, if your student was tested for an initial evaluation or a triennial evaluation, the data of those tests would be put in this section. So again, this is Harry Potter's annual IEP, so there's nothing in that section right now. For hearing and vision, Harry wears glasses, so that's noted there. And so for this is where we get into the meat. Like this is the actual meat of the IEP. This is how your child is performing. So this is, in reading, this is the student's strengths, what he or she is good at. And then this, we also need to mention, okay, there might be a deficit here, and we're going to possibly make a goal about that. So again, this and the academic section should be broken up into, say, reading vocabulary, reading comprehension, reading for informational text. The math should be split up into perhaps numbers and operations. There's different categories of math skills, algebraic thinking. And the benefit of breaking up these math and English skills is just so that we can really hone in on what exactly is your child having a struggle with. And the more focused we can be about it, the better we can write a good goal that will target that skill. And then the written expression, you can see there's a lot in the area of writing that Harry Potter is currently functioning. This is the communication section. Harry does have a speech goal, and you can see right here, this is the present levels. There is an area of concern in speech and its articulation. So the present levels are already pointing us toward a goal that Harry is going to have. And then you can see this is the gross fine motor, social emotional, vocational, and health, daily living skills. And I just want to mention that you can write in the health section, and it's good for us to know if the student has seasonal allergies, or if he or she needs to take medicine for ADD in the middle of the day, or things like that. Those things, it's helpful if they're noted in this section. And then the final piece of this present levels is the areas of deficit, the areas of need. And for Harry, it's articulation, algebraic thinking, writing, editing, reading comprehension for figurative language, and there's even a behavior task completion need that he has. So that is the present levels page, and that is a really, really fast coverage of it, but that is the meat of the beginning of the IEP. Yeah.
Heather, could we also just see that in with the English part, just so we
Yes.
could look at the sections, please?
Definitely. So here it is, and it is so rich in information. This is about the student. This is your input as a parent. Again, here's the information about the SBAC testing that's on hold possibly, the LPAC scores, hearing and vision, and again, all this academic information. I mean, it is, and this is a really thorough one.
And Heather, I did want to just address, there's some things in the chat between Dr. Dardis and also from Ms. Dudas as well, that teachers do have different types of writing styles on the present levels, and that is fine. We just want to make sure that the information is complete and addresses the different, at least core parts of academics, as well as each of those sections that you are seeing, so that everybody knows what your child's strengths and the areas of concerns and needs are.
That's a good point, because some present levels are written in a bullet format. Under each section, under each heading, there may be a bullet list of skills, and then perhaps a couple of areas of deficit that are listed as well. And that is completely all right as well. And so present levels, moving on to the next page is special factors.
And Heather, I'd
Diane,
like to, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I would like to, Diane, and you can give me a thumbs up or not. Diane, is this a good time to go ahead and take a break at this moment? Yes, if
Okay.
Perhaps if we could just take a break. And
Okay.
then afterwards, we can continue on in the special factors. So Diane, a 5-minute break, or do we need a little bit longer? You can just show by your hands. A 5-minute break, if that is good with everybody. So if you please need to go get some coffee, some tea, go to the bathroom, and we will meet back here. My computer time is telling me 10:02. So at 10:07, we will come back to resume our presentation.
is lovely music, Heather.
Thank you.
Or is it Anna Maria's music?
It's my music. It's on YouTube, classical music for studying.
I like it.
Thank you.
Very soothing.
Yes.
Heather, at the conclusion of this beautiful song, we could probably go ahead and get started again.
You know what? I don't think the song ever ends. It continuously goes for about 6 hours. So I'll go ahead and just pause it.
Yeah, I don't think my AirPods are going to last the 6 hours for that. Sorry.
No. So is everyone, shall I go ahead and begin, Anna Maria?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you. I just want to welcome you all back and thank you again. There are many ways you could have spent your morning this morning, and you chose to spend it here learning about IEP documents. And we teachers love it when parents are so involved and engaged in their child's education. So thank you for making the time to come this morning. And we also have another presentation this afternoon at 4 p.m. So if your friends or anyone would like to come to that one, we will be here as well.
And Heather, one last thing that I'd like to add before we continue is we will post the link to this presentation in the chat at the end after we are done, so everybody has access to it.
Great. So before the special factors, remember we talked about the present levels, and that was just the meat, a really big, important part of the IEP. And so this special factors page is really just that. It's little bits and pieces here or there that maybe we need to focus on in a very focused way. So for example, if your child needs assistive technology supports, then the special factors page will address it. And there are different types of assistive technology. I can briefly share there's low-tech assistive technology, which means even just a pencil grip or a paper picture symbol to communicate words just through symbols. There's also some mid-tech assistive technology, which is some students with very intense needs, for example, will touch a button and that button will speak for them and it'll say yes or no. So that button is considered a mid-tech assistive technology support. And high-tech is like an iPad with all these little picture icons of ways that a child can communicate with pictures. And that is something that is pretty common for, say, maybe our students with autism who are nonverbal. They may be using an electronic device like that. There's also a section called low incidence supports, and that is a place where we talk about if your child needs a special adaptive chair to sit to help him or her sit up straight, things like that. We will discuss vision and hearing specifics and any equipment necessary. We'll talk about some English language learner supports on this page and some behavior supports as well. So I'll show you an example of the special factors page. Let's go to the IEP section. Excuse me, let me find my IEP. I am looking for my, so sorry. I don't know what happened to my SACE. If you will just hang out for a moment, I need to find my SACE. My IEP examples. I don't know how it got closed out. That's the lovely thing about technology this year, is that we've all learned how to navigate strange things that happen during meetings. And this is definitely one of them, where a page will disappear And
Heather, would
We
you like
talk
me to
about how-
send you? Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead,
so sorry,
Anna Maria.
Dr. Dardis. I was going to say, would you like
Yeah.
me to send you a PDF of the IEP or broken down into pages, if that would be helpful for you?
I do have that already, so I'm just going to put this here. And thanks for your patience. Back to Harry Potter, and we're going to special factors. So this page, like I mentioned in the slide, it'll talk about why does this child need assistive technology? Yes or no? We need to talk about assistive technology. And because there's a wide range of ways that a student could be supported with assistive technology, whether it's pencil grips or buttons or actual electronic communication devices. So you can see here that this is the low incidence services section, the blind and visually impaired section. And we need to know if the student wears glasses, it'd be great to have an updated prescription so that we know the student is learning and can see what he or she is learning. And this section is if your student is an English language learner, again, this information will be filled out. How is your student receiving English language support? Through the gen ed teacher, through the special ed teacher, through a structured English immersion program. And so
If
this
it's a preschooler, they won't have that information in the IEP.
Okay, thank you. And in this section is the behavior section where we talk about, does the student's behaviors impede the learning of himself or others? And for Harry Potter, yes, he can be easily distracted and he tries to engage in conversations with his peers during direct instruction or independent work time. And he can be a distraction to himself and to others. So if that's the case, then we talk about some positive interventions that we use. And we also include a behavior goal and a behavior intervention plan if necessary. So that is the special factors page. Any questions about any of those sections? I'm trying to break it down into sections so you can see it's not this big monster you might think it is. Maybe you don't, but it's really geared toward making sure we hit every single need that your child might have. Any questions about that? Okay, statewide assessments is the next page. And this one is about just that. And I don't know, well, since there's a lot of, just right now, it's up in the air about taking these standardized tests during the spring, but this whole page is dedicated to all those standardized test results. Okay, so the present levels page had a little snippet of it, but this page talks about, yes, they're taking the test, and these are the accommodations that we're offering for them to help take that test better. So for a student who's visually impaired, there's actually an accommodation during the statewide test. There's an accommodation for them to have a magnifying device if they actually need to access that test better with a magnifying device. We can offer that. In this case, Harry needs a separate setting. He needs it to be quiet. He needs to be tested. He needs to be offered simplified test directions. For his science test, he needs charts, the periodic table of elements. He needs, I think certain kids could have a multiplication chart as well for the math test. So there are different accommodations that we can provide, and this is where we list it. Physical fitness test, I believe that's not happening this spring. This is for preschoolers, the DRDP, Desired Results Developmental Profile. The results from that test go there. And then for all the English language proficiency assessments in California, those accommodations are listed here. And so if we check the box and it will, so if your if your child has an accommodation in a certain section, that box will be checked, just like it was up here. So that's the statewide assessments page. And does anyone have?
Heather?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, it is in the chat, but Dr. Dardis did let us know earlier that that physical fitness test is suspended until 2022, just for everyone's knowledge.
Wow. Okay, thank you. So after the statewide assessments page, we are diving into the goals. And again, if you remember that diagram where it was, data, present levels, goals, that's where we're at. So the goals are derived from the present levels, mainly from the areas of need in the present levels. The goals have different parts to them. They have a baseline, where the student is at right now. They have a due date. They're measurable, and there's a responsible party listed on the goal page. So who's responsible for helping the student meet the goal? Usually it's the education specialist or special ed teacher, maybe the speech and language pathologist. And the goals drive what services that student will receive. And I'll show you an example of the goals. That's what happened. Okay, so I see what happened when my previous system went down. It was because I accidentally clicked the X instead of, okay. So now I understand. I will watch that. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, so the goals that the team come up with, and again, your input is part of the goals as well. The goals are arranged in a way that looks like this. So this is the area of need that was determined from the present levels. This is the baseline, which is taken from all those paragraphs in the present levels. This particular skill, Harry is intelligible at the conversation level, but he continues to demonstrate distortion of certain letters and sounds. That was in the present levels. Now, because of this deficit, or because of this need, we're making a goal. And so here's the person, here's who's responsible. The speech and language pathologist is responsible. All of these sections talk about, does this goal relate to a certain standard? Does this goal address other needs? In this case, this goal is linguistically appropriate. And I'll show you an example of, so for his math goal, there is a standard connected to it. We really try to make our goals connect to a general ed standard because a lot of our students who have IEPs, they are in general ed and they're learning general ed standards. And even if they spend all day in special ed, we still have specialized curriculum that is linked to the general ed curriculum. So in all of our goals, we're linking it somehow to a standard, an educational standard. Now, if, let's see, if your student, let me show you this part. If your student has a little more intense needs, then these short-term objectives will be filled out. So what that means is if your student is an English language learner, there most likely will be, the goal will be split up into different parts, and we're going to give you progress on that skill at certain time increments. And so like that parent asked earlier, when am I going to receive progress reports? It's different. If you have a student who has more intense needs, you'll probably receive progress reports a little more frequently. So those are the goals. And let's see, any questions about your students, your child's goals? Okay.
Heather, we I'm sorry, Heather, we do have a comment from Dr. Dardis. I'm sorry, from Lynn, that short-term objectives should be filled out for both ELD and for preschool as well. So just wanted to make a mention of that.
Thank you. Preschool, so it's preschool students with intense needs, and students who are English language learners. Those are the three populations that we will be filling out short-term objectives for. Okay. So that's the goals page, and I wanted to leave some time to talk if we wanted. It looks like we just took a break, so we'll keep going. So leaving the goals and going into the services and accommodations page, this also is a really big page, really important. It has a lot of information. So let's dive into it. In the services page, we'll talk about the continuum of services that we provide at Oceanside Unified. And I'll go over that when I show you a picture of the services page. It will also, we'll mention the harmful effects statement, which sounds really awful, but it just talks about how there may be some pros and cons to a student being in special education. And one of those cons might be that he or she is going to miss out on the general education curriculum for that time that he's being pulled out into a special ed setting to work on this skill a little bit more. So that's one example of a harmful effect, which is how it is stated in the IEP document. But we believe that we're making this IEP because we believe the pros of him receiving special ed outweigh those cons that we are aware of. And supplemental aids, this services page also talks about just all sorts of accommodations and modifications that the team can make to help this student learn better, to help him or her meet his goals. So on this page is the services. And let me go ahead, close that. So here we are on the services page. This is sort of the culmination of that diagram that I showed you. Present levels is where we started, then we made goals. Now we're developing services, deciding on services. So in Oceanside, we offer a continuum. So you can have a child in general education class all day with special education teacher in the gen ed class helping him or her out. That's one way we can offer services. Another way is your student is in general education and he or she leaves the general ed class for a little bit to go to a special ed setting. And then another way, maybe he or she is in general ed and just leaves to go for speech, maybe a couple times a week, okay, for 30 minutes or so. That's another option. Another option is that we have the student in a special education separate setting all day and receiving just specialized services. Okay, so those are just the range. There's a range. And let's see, it looks like for Harry, he is in general education with specialized academic instruction for part of the day. And so again, this is the harmful effects statement. So we have to acknowledge that maybe a harmful effect of the student receiving special ed services is that he or she won't be being socialized with general ed peers during the time that he or she is in a special ed setting. We're aware of that, but we believe that these services are more important than they outweigh the costs of that situation. So this section is called Supplementary Aids and Services. And okay, so this is the accommodation section where we figure out how can we meet this goal? How can we have this child meet this goal? So there are different kinds of accommodations that you can see. There's accommodations in how the teacher presents material. So one of the accommodations that a teacher might have is, okay, we all decided as an IEP team that Mrs. Johnson needs to ask Harry, hey, can you rephrase what I just said? can you restate what I said? Okay, so that's an accommodation that the teacher makes during the presentation. Another accommodation is that the teacher provides instruction in a variety of ways: tangible instruction, audio instruction, visual instruction. That's an accommodation. Again, if a student has vision impairments, a magnification device could be beneficial in the way that a teacher presents information. So most teachers have a projector in their classroom. That can be considered an accommodation in a way. But for students who have visual impairments, a magnification device can also be offered. There's accommodations in how a student tells me that he or she knows the information. So maybe the student doesn't write me an essay in paragraphs just yet. Maybe he or she presents the information to me in a graphic organizer, which is a display, a diagram, where he or she plugs in, okay, these were the characters in the story, and there's little boxes, and this is what happened in the story, and there's a box for that. So it helps them organize their thought that someday will become an essay. There's also an accommodation. So if I had cerebral palsy and I couldn't use my hands very well, maybe I have a scribe in the classroom to write down the class notes for me, or maybe I have a speech to text technology that I can speak into a computer and it'll write the assignment for me. There's also accommodations in setting, flexible seating, different, ways. We can have an exercise ball in the classroom and a student can sit on that during instruction. There are different ways that we can accommodate the child's setting to help him or her be more focused and comfortable for learning. And the timing accommodation is just multiple breaks throughout the day, offering the child breaks, offering extended time on assignments, things like that. Are there any questions? This is a lot in accommodations. Are there any questions about just accommodations or the continuum of services that we offer for students at Oceanside?
There is a question. Unfortunately, Diane, can you translate that for me into English and I will ask it out loud?
She was just saying, oh, I don't see the question from Diane, sorry. She was telling Wendy to click on the interpretation and then click in Spanish to be able to hear the interpretation.
I apologize. I thought that was a question regarding what you had asked, Heather. So that is something different. Oh, hold on. It looks like Diane is, this is from Diane, and she has written in the chat, Dr. Dardis, can you please explain? And
yes,
part
I
of
can.
It is in Spanish. Okay, thank you, Dr. Dardis. I will let you take that right now.
Okay. Para la bienvenida a la Junta, Ms. Wendy. Si usted ve abajo en la barra, puede ver un globo, y si haga clic en el globo y escoja español, puede escuchar a la señora Diane Kemp López, que es la intérprete para la Junta, y allí puede escuchar toda la información en español que la señora Cipolla está explicando ahorita.
Está bien, muchas gracias, ya lo tengo.
A usted, okay, qué bien, qué bien. She said that she got it and she's now ready.
Okay. And this section is called program modifications. So these are the ways, again, these are ways that we're trying to help the student meet the goal. So maybe we'll offer, maybe this student we can average out all his or her assignments after he or she has already reworked them. So maybe a student got 60% on a quiz or an assignment. And then I said, you know what? I'm gonna let you retake this. And if you get the better grade on it, then I'm gonna count that grade instead of your initial 60%. Okay, so that's an option. Another way that we can help a student be successful is we could grade the content without caring about spelling. Maybe some students aren't good at spelling. That's fine. I just want to know if you understand what the story was about. I don't care about spelling. Another teacher could provide possible answers for fill in the blank sections. That's a little bit more, it's more intense modification, providing fill in the blank options during an assignment or a quiz. And then some students who may have more intense needs might just focus on mastery of more functional math concepts like money, exchanging money out in the community. That will help his or her independent living skills later in life. So that's an example of mastery of functional math concepts. So that's a modification. And I just want to mention accommodations and modifications are different. Accommodation is when, like I said, if I have cerebral palsy and I can't use my hand, an accommodation will be something that will lift me to where other students who have use of their hand are. So an accommodation will put me on an equal playing field with people who do not have a problem with using their hand. So an accommodation, even wearing glasses, is an accommodation in a sense. If you have vision issues, then you're not on an equal playing field with people who don't have vision issues. But when you wear glasses, now you're on an equal playing field in the sense, and that can help you move forward. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Heather, I just wanted to add that accommodations, the way I think of accommodations is they are supports that are being provided to the student to help them access the same assignment, the same, they're still doing the same assignment, but a modification is where you're altering the assignment. And so the student may have accommodations, but they may also have modifications where the assignment is kind of being changed. And so sometimes you'll notice, especially as the students get into like high school, for example, that if a student is getting a lot of modifications, they might be getting like some kind of a modified grade because they're actually completing different work, whereas accommodations, they might be able to receive all those accommodations and still receive the same grade, not like a modified grade.
Okay, great, thank you. And let's see, I will scroll down a little bit more. So sometimes there are other supports that we provide, such as consultation between, say, the speech therapist and the general ed teacher. Maybe the speech therapist will give the gen ed teacher some tips on, oh, hey, maybe you can really focus your lesson on articulating some of these words and these sounds. That might be a way that a consultation happens between a speech therapist and a gen ed teacher. Or we can provide certain fidgets. So Harry Potter in this example has some distractibility issues. He gets easily distracted. And sometimes if a student plays with something, just in a little something, or if they move their legs on this little therapy band while they're sitting in their chair, sometimes those kinds of movements can help them pay attention better. So those are the kinds of things that we're offering in the educational setting, just to help the student work toward their goals and have access to the general education curriculum. So here's the services, and this is called the service grid. You may hear us talk about the service grid, and this is it. So a student might receive specialized academic instruction, which is basically they have a special ed teacher helping them, and they are receiving it in this district. The duration and frequency, oftentimes services are listed in either a weekly basis, a monthly basis. Services can be delivered on a yearly basis. It's all what the team determines are needed from the goals that we have for this student. Okay, like how are we going to meet this goal in 32 weeks of a school year? Okay, well, we're going to give him 550 minutes weekly of special ed help in a regular classroom. So the difference between this specialized academic instruction and this one is that the minutes are different. But so this one is 275 minutes weekly in a separate classroom. Okay, so that is just what it is. Harry is receiving some special ed services in the gen ed classroom where the special ed teacher will come in. That's that section. And he's also receiving services where he may leave that general ed classroom and go to a different setting for, well, it looks like here, 275 minutes a week. And again, that's something that the team decides on as it agrees upon. So these,
Heather, sorry.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify that specialized academic instruction can also be provided by an instructional aide, but the instructional aide needs to be under the direction of the education specialist or the special education teacher. And they need to be working specifically on goals and really be, provided with all the resources and the instructional materials and all the information about how to best teach that student that skill. So they really need to be under the direction of the special education teacher, but they can be providing the SAI or specialized academic instruction.
Thank you. And so, there's so much lingo in special ed. What we call this special ed instruction in a general ed classroom, we often call it push-in support, where the special ed teacher or the special ed in professional, paraprofessional comes into the gen ed classroom. That's called push-in support. And then another way that we call the special education services outside the gen ed classroom are pull out, SAI. And those are just some lingo that we use. Speech and language is, you can see this. So the location of the speech and language is service provider location. Okay, just notice the location of where your child's goals are being worked on. Might be a separate classroom, might be a regular classroom. This one is at a service provider location, meaning wherever the speech therapist is. And generally, there's a speech therapist on every campus. So in the speech and language services are happening 750 minutes a year. And again, for our students who are 16, turning 16 in their school year, so usually maybe sophomores, juniors, seniors, they will be having services like this: college awareness, vocational assessment counseling, career awareness. And I left this blank on purpose. Let's say you're at an IEP meeting and your child's service doesn't have anything filled in. You need to say, excuse me, my child has these services. Can you please fill this out? Okay, so really the teacher should have this filled out. But in this case, if you notice something that's blank, you can definitely ask, like, oh, excuse me, why is that blank? And either the teacher will say, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to fill that in. Or hopefully the teacher will say, oh, that's blank because that doesn't apply to him or her. But in the case of the service, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Heather. I just wanted to note that in the chat that Lynn also made a distinction that you should also know whether or not the services that your child will be receiving is either individually or through a group, and it would be marked in those particular services.
Thank you. And in this Harry Potter's case, it's all group. So those are, as you can see, there are a lot of components to even one portion of this service grid. And it's all those components that the team comes together and decides, we believe this is appropriate for how we're going to help your child meet his or her goal. So there are more services than just in the grid. There are special education transportation services. And I'm going to just real quickly say that is a service we offer. Not everybody receives transportation, and that's a team decision. There's also extended school year. That's another service that we offer, and it is for students who demonstrate severe regression of skills over a long break. So not every student will receive extended school year services. Any questions about that page? we could probably talk about it for a couple hours. And there's a little portion of the service page that we do talk about during this COVID time, and I will just briefly show you that it is called the SB 98 form. And the SB 98 form is something that we are sharing with parents because it talks about how our services look different during a national disaster. If there's any time that a student is out of school 10 or more days, then we offer this SB 98 form in a way that, let me see if it's over here. We offer the SB 98 form, and it basically describes how we are offering services in this very different emergency situation. Okay, so those services will be offered perhaps asynchronous, which means a separate assignment that a teacher sends to a student over electronically, or synchronous is a way that the service is being delivered at the same time. The student is live with the teacher. That's one way that a service can be delivered. And that's how Zoom has been a big, or Google Meets. Those are some ways that we've been helping students get their services, even though we're not in person. That's synchronous, is when I'm teaching live. Asynchronous is when I am sending a student an assignment so that he or she can work on it on his or her own time. So that's the SB 98 form, and it is not showing up immediately. And I can show you that later if you like. And again, you will have access to this presentation where you can access that. Any questions about the SB 98 form? We just have about 15 more minutes. I want to be sure that we get through everything. The educational setting page is another page of the IEP where we talk about anything else that we have missed. Okay, so what kind of, is your student in physical education, general education, or physical ed, maybe a specialized PE? So that's something that's discussed on that page. Their school of attendance. And some students are not at their school of residence, and that might be because there's an appropriate program at their school of residence doesn't exist. And so we put them at another school, or maybe because you want school of choice. And if you want school of choice for your student, for your child, then you visit the student services department for that. And preschool program, percent of time in general ed versus special ed, I'll show you that. Why they're in special ed for that time, other agencies that you're involved with, that your student receives help from in the community, and how progress will be shared for this IEP. So I'm going to just quickly go through the educational setting page. So here are all the little details. Is he in general PE? Yes. Is he at a school of residence? Yes. Is he in preschool? No. So we're skipping that section. That's when it's okay that you leave a blank. Program setting. So this percentage section is pretty important because of those services where he's being pulled out or pushed, or services are being pushed into his general education. We need to break those down into percentages. So basically this student is spending 85% of his day in general ed. Okay, so he's only being pulled out for 15% of his time. And so remember, he was receiving special ed services in the general ed environment. Okay, so that means that's the 85% of the time. That special ed education in the general ed, it's included right there in the 85%. So, and this explains why he's not participating in the general ed environment for 100% of the day. It's because he's receiving specialized academic instruction, speech and language, these other
career vocation services in a separate setting. And he benefits from small group instruction that helps him or her meet his particular goal. So some of you have regional center, meaning some of you cooperate with regional center, or your child receives services from regional center. Some receive services from an outside ABA therapy agency. And ABA therapy is something that I believe it's called adaptive behavior. Lynn, you could correct me, but ABA is
applied behavior analysis.
Thank you. Applied behavior analysis. Some of you have your children signed up for ABA therapy, and that's an agency that works for a lot of children as well. And we also note how you're going to receive information about this IEP, usually on a semester basis if your child is in high school or in middle school. Recently, our elementary school system moved from trimester to semester. And so they will also receive on semester basis. And we will receive the progress on goals in that format that I showed you about how he met his goal or how he was doing in his goal. That progress on report, those progress on goal is separate from the report card. And that's what this is talking about right here. So that is the educational setting page. Any questions about that?
Heather, I know that one of the parents was asking previously on that, and it's on the educational setting page, they were asking about when the student will be receiving the progress report. And I know you mentioned that, but I just wanted to show that right there. It says, for Harry Potter anyway, it says like every semester. So that's where you could find if it's quarterly, semester, or trimester. So semester would probably be what, like 2 times a year, trimester 3 times, and quarterly would be 4, I think. But the dates might vary a little bit.
Yes. Very good. Thank you for clarifying that.
And Heather,
yes.
So Heather, I know you just wanted to quickly show the signature page in the notes so parents are aware of those documents. But I am going to put some questions in the chat just so we get a polling of our participants on how you heard about this event, suggestions on how we may encourage other parents or guardians to attend, and of course, what if you would recommend this event to others. So as you're listening, if you would like to kind of just answer those questions in the chat, I will put the questions in the chat, and then of course, just leave any some time for questions that parents want to ask verbally.
Okay, so then are you saying you would not like me to go over the signature page because we want to take questions?
Maybe just quickly show it so everybody is aware of what it should look like.
Very good. So this signature, I mean, this is the page that we all signed that we participated in the IEP up here. But then if you consent, you provide another signature, which is here, and you check the box that you consent to the IEP. Maybe some of you don't agree with all parts of the IEP. There are options for that, and there are ways to work with the teacher. We want to work with you to make sure that you do agree with the plan that we have for your child. So that's what our ultimate goal is, to work with you to help create the best plan for your child. And this talks about, are we involving you in the education of your child? Are we asking you for input? Yes. And this section talks about how we bill Medi-Cal for some of our services, and if you are okay that we bill Medi-Cal because your student might have speech services, then you sign there. And again, at the very bottom,
Heather, just so that they know.
I just wanted to quickly, I hear an apologize.
It's me, Stephanie. I was going to say that something about the
affect your Medi-Cal. You just receive the money from them, and that money goes back towards materials for students. So it gets back directly into the school system. It does not affect your Medi-Cal insurance at all.
Thank you. And another page of the IEP that we often talk about is the notes page. And that page is just, that someone's taking notes during the IEP meeting. And this is how it's captured on the notes page. And this is what it might look like.
Heather, can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes.
We have a question from a parent.
Yes.
So she says that she has not or I'm assuming that she has not received the progress report. And so how can she, and with the frequency of every 3 months, who can she contact?
Well, okay, so if it is supposed to be shared with you every 3 months, then definitely talk to the teacher, to the special ed teacher. And if you don't know who the special ed teacher is, then talk to the general ed teacher, and the general ed teacher will tell you who the special ed teacher is for that student. But if it is supposed to be shared on a semester basis, then, and if you haven't received it on a semester basis, then talk with the teacher as well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And then Diane just put in the translation of the questions for the parents. So that's what she wrote in there.
Okay, thank you. And so, like I said, this is the notes page, and it is, some notes are more detailed than others, but the bottom line is we want to capture the basics of what happened at that meeting. And so that way, if you move to Texas tomorrow, the teacher in Texas can read through the notes and say, okay, what happened at this meeting? Okay, now I know. So that's the IEP. And thank you for walking through this with me, with us. I hope that you got a little better idea of the different parts of the different pages. Some are just so rich in information, it can be overwhelming, but really, if you have any questions, you can email Anna Maria or I, or, Dr. Dardis, Lynn, Stephanie. The next meeting for this same format will be April 25th. It's a Wednesday at those same times, and we will be discussing parent resources. So things that, ways that you can be helped in the either, I don't know if it's material resources or community resources, just all sorts of resources.
It's actually Wednesday, April 28th.
Oh, okay.
And it is, it's regarding parent resources, and we're still gathering those resources, so I can't do exactly what those are going to be, but it's going to be great. Come and tell your friends to come.
Okay, very good.
And again, I want to thank Heather for running through all of that information. That was wonderfully so in depth, and hopefully everybody found that very informative. Does anybody have any questions that we possibly may be able to answer? And if not, we're going to refer you to your child's case manager. And also, again, if you could please answer some brief questions for us, again, on how did you hear about this event? And any suggestions that we can, that you would like to provide to us, how we may encourage more parents to attend. And if you'd like to put that information in the chat, or please feel free to just go ahead and speak up, and I will take notes.
And thank you, Diane, for translating for us today.
If I can just share something real quick with the parents.
Definitely.
So as you can tell, in education, we love acronyms, and they can be a little daunting and confusing. So we do have a resource on the district website. If you go to the parent tab and scroll down to resources, we have an educational acronym directory there that's in English and Spanish. So anytime you run across an acronym that you're not sure about, you can always go to that page, that site on the district website, and it can help explain what those acronyms are.
Thank you.
And Heather, can you also, when you get a moment, if you could please put that the link into the chat for our parents who are also here, so that might be helpful as well.
Very good. I want to double check. It's the parent tab, and then you click.
Go down to resources.
Okay, got it.
And then it should be educational acronyms.
Okay, thank you. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Yeah, so
Yes, we can.
yeah, I really don't have any questions, but I would like to say thank you because this has really opened my mind to a new understanding as far as the IP, the IEP. One of the two things that I love is connecting the dots, but the thing that I love the most is the transitional period as far as when they hit the age of 16, because it's because in life we have different transitional periods, and I really love that because it shows that you guys are really intentional as far as their education and their future. And that's one thing that I didn't know about the IEP, how intentional you guys really are. It seems like you guys do really know what you're doing, and I really, really, really appreciate that. I really do. And I can see through everything that we went through that my nephew is in good hands, and I'm very excited to see the work that is going to be done in his life through the IEP. So actually I do have a question. So how long are they in IEP for? From kindergarten all the way up through high school? Or like, let's say for instance, if they start improving in all the areas that they need improvement in, do you guys release them, or how does that work?
That's what I meant to mention. Does a student ever graduate from special ed? And really, it varies. So if a student is showing progress in meeting his or her goals over time, and we don't exit a child from special ed without doing an assessment to make sure that he or she really
Right.
has met all of his or her goals in a way that, yeah, you can go without these services from now on. But we don't just drop a student from special ed. We go through a process to exit them.
Right. Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you guys again. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
We do have a question in the chat as well. And Dr. Dardis, can you please translate that for all of us if it's okay?
She's just saying she has questions, but she's having, yes, connection problems, yeah.
Thank you. So then what I would say to that is if you have questions, Diane, perhaps you just might go ahead and let parent or guardian know to contact child's case manager for specific questions. But if they would like to put something in the chat or contact one of us, our email is at the bottom of that presentation, and we'd be happy to answer general questions. But anything specific should to your child's case manager or education specialist.
So Anna Maria, you would like me to put the link to this presentation in the chat right now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And the parents can email in Spanish as well, and we can work on getting it translated. So they don't have to worry about sending the email in English.
And we do have Monica in our front office, who is the secretary here. So she as well can answer help work with our staff here to answer any questions.
Thank you again for your attention and your questions and your insight.
Hola, buenos días.
Hello.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Sí, ¿cómo le podemos ayudar?
Morning.
Good morning. ¿Usted tiene una pregunta?
Yo tengo preguntas, pero sí, pero tengo problemas de conexión. No sé si me escuchan.
Sí, sí le escuchamos. Lo que pasa es que si usted quiere ponerse en contacto con la maestra o el maestro que está en carga de del caso de su hijo, usted puede llamar también a la oficina aquí y las señoras que están haciendo la clase le puede contestar lo mejor que pueda.
Ok. Yo tengo una pregunta. La doctora mencionó sobre un certificado de la high school y habló de otro certificado. ¿Cuál es el otro nombre del otro certificado?
So the parent is asking about the 2 certificates that are given at high school, and she wanted to know what is the name of the other certificate. So I don't know which one you were specifically mentioning, but I know that we talk about being diploma bound. So there's a diploma bound certificate, and then there's a certificate of attendance saying that you attended high school.
And so the difference between them, if you have the diploma that we call an A through G diploma, then your child would be able to apply to a 4-year college if that's what your child's goals are. If you have the California diploma, but it's not A through G, then they can go and apply to a 2-year college. Which is still a phenomenal way to go after school if your child is interested in continuing education, because after the 2-year, if they're still wanting to receive their bachelor's, they can, go forward. So that's the main difference.
They can also attend any kind of vocational or trade school as well. Or if they are ready to enter the workforce, they can do that as well. And there are many, many students that even graduate with A through G diplomas that still attend our 2-year programs. So it's just, that is really the basic difference. Thank you, Ms. Grossman.
I did just want, it is put in the chat by Lynn, that we do have another meeting on this exact same topic, the same presentation, and that will be later today, starting at 4 p.m. So if you would like to encourage others to attend, we look forward to seeing as many parents and guardians as possible.
Or if this was just so fabulous and you want to hear it a second time, join again. Or on a serious note, if you have questions that you think of, because that typically happens after a meeting.
Yeah.
I should have asked this. You're more than welcome, to come in if you want to join towards the end. And if you don't have another 2 hours, feel free to come in and you can ask questions if that helps, so you can get an answer more in real time.
Thank you everyone for attending today. Thank you, Heather and Anna Maria, for presenting and moderating the chat. Thank you, Diane, for a fabulous job with your interpretation. It's always a pleasure to work with you. And we, are very happy that you all were here with us to spend this time. And if you have any feedback that would be helpful for us, please let us know, because we want to make these as useful for you. And if you have other suggestions on how we can reach out to parents to present this for them and encourage more parents to attend with us, as you can tell, our ladies have done a fantastic job of planning and explaining, and I'm just super proud to work with this team. So I really want to help spread the word of how we can encourage our families to be a partner with us in this process. And thank you, Deb, for being the fabulous family engagement TOSA that you always are, and we're very lucky to have you. I'm glad to be working with you all again. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I'm going to be ending this session now. So thank you all for attending, and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. It was a great presentation.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.